Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Welcome. We are Del and Debi's Mind, Body, Soul, the home of invigorating talk on all things to do with health and well-being. I'm Debi Jones, and I'm a certified transformational coach and a 3 principles practitioner, and I specialize in the areas of personal growth, relationships, and recovery from narcissistic abuse. And today we have a fabulous show. But before we introduce it, I'm going to, remind you that we have a Facebook page where we take questions if anybody'd like to ask our guest a question. Or we also have a call-in number, which is 323-284-7826. And we'd love to hear from you. And over here to my side is my beautiful co-host.
Thank you, Del. Really excited about today's show. I'm the co-host. I'm Debi Carlin Boyle, and I am certified as a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and an integrative nutrition health coach. I help people find balance in their life with everything that feeds us in addition to the food on our plate. So excited. Wow. We are just so excited to have this amazing lady here with us today. Yes. Marla Fries is a transformational psychic medium, and her list of unique skills includes innate intuition, therapeutic studies on life coaching, spiritual and conscientious training. She works with the law enforcement. She's also a radio host, and she's former background 25 years as a successful stage and TV actress. Her new book, American Psychic, is Marla's spiritual journey, which unfolds like a mystery novel that you just really can't put down. Take it from us. Marla's extraordinary story is truly captivating, and we're actually so honored to have her here today to talk all about it. Will you please welcome our guest, Marla Fries? Hello, Marla.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my goodness.
That was great. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. All
Yeah.
true. All true.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We're so lucky to have you. We know how busy you are right now on this book tour, so very excited.
And today marks the 2nd week it's been out, so
Yeah.
it's really great.
Well, congratulations on that. It is, we're going to talk about it because it is a biography. It is a story about your life, which is what we're going to get into and what you do. But I just must say, and I mentioned this to you in the green room, it is written so well.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
So well for not having a
Yes.
writing background as a novelist or a writer. It's just, you can't stop turning the pages.
Yeah.
I had a short amount of time, boy, and I just couldn't stop. Couldn't
No,
put
I
it
know.
down.
Me too. I was supposed to be
Really.
in some retreat where they were like, no reading, no talking, no work, and I was sneaking my book and reading it away.
So intriguing.
They didn't say no Marla, though.
Exactly,
Yeah, no.
exactly. But just as Debi said, just the descriptions. You are just taking on this very, very riveting ride with you. It's beautifully written, so descriptive, and just beautiful.
Thank you.
Which
So-
gets us into
Mhm,
what
yes.
it's about. And
Okay.
starting from the beginning, we want to hear where you're from, where your roots are, and your beginnings.
Yeah.
Well,
we
the
could.
the title, American Psychic, the American part is I am from the heartland of America. I'm from South Central Pennsylvania,
There you go.
right in the middle of the fields and the mountains, and it was an incredible place to grow up in.
Wow, sounds beautiful. Well, as always, obviously how you grew up impacted what you do today. So
Yes.
let's share what you'd like about your upbringing. I know the people out there, we're going to rush through this a little bit because I was just joking with Marla that we'd need her on for about 10 shows to get through everything.
Each chapter.
Okay.
A
Exactly.
chapter is a show.
So we're going to learn a little bit about your background, how you grew up, and sorry, my mic just went off for a second. That was the oops. And And just, your family of origin and how it was growing up in your family and also in Pennsylvania.
Well, it's really interesting because the book is a trajectory of life. And then, of course, the transformation. It's the trauma of my childhood through the drama of an acting career into the transformation of many different things. And that's also how we think about stuff. So I believe that I must have chosen my parents in this life, and the dynamic of it, there's some incredible, wonderful things about it, but I did have to navigate the fact that my father had come back from the war in a body cast. And by the time that I was born, my mother had lost her dream of being an officer's wife, and he was medicating, and so was she in her own way. And she had some difficulties.
And you had an older sister, too.
Yes, my sister was 11 years older. Yeah.
Right, so it was like two separate, she was sort of your babysitter when she was there, but she left, right?
Yes,
And then left you there.
Well, I think that, she had to have her own life, but I'm so grateful that I had her for the first 5 years of my life.
Now, was she the pre-war baby then? Is that how that worked?
No,
What?
She was
it's a long gap.
She was born in 47. So, yes, there was a long gap. I'd like to say that my parents had sex twice, and I was the second time. But, yes, and I'm so grateful that she was in my life for the first 5 years. But she did leave to go on and have her own life. And, yeah, I had to navigate my mom. So that's part of the trajectory of the book.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Would you like to share a little bit about how that was, navigating your mother and your father?
Well, interestingly enough, I had a great relationship with my father, but early on I recognized that he was limited. And I wanted more from him, but of course I understood that he was broken. The war does different things to different people. And but I did have this incredible life with him. We had a farm outside of town where he was taking the feed. He was a feed salesman, but he was also a national landrace hog breeder. So we had this farm, and we had horses, and I got to get away with him. And actually, there was something that happened when I was 14. I had an accident with my horse, and it was that moment where I was given guidance. A voice came to me, a very specific voice that basically told me how to save my life in the upcoming accident that was just a few yards away. So that really changed everything.
Was that the first time, though, that you felt that you had any intuition or psychic abilities? Was that the first?
Well, no, I actually saw things as a child, younger, but actually a couple of years before the horse accident, I was privy to sitting with a girl in the first week of school, and these were girls from another part of town, and I didn't know any of them, but we were sitting and talking, and I kept looking at this girl thinking, she's so beautiful, she's so sweet. I had no idea why. I had to capture her. There was something about her innocence that I wanted to protect. And the next week, she was actually abducted, raped, and murdered.
Yes.
And we're talking a small town. So that changed everything. I started thinking about the men in the woods, etc., ripping me off of my horse. And then in the next year, two women that I had seen from a very young age, from the time that I was 6, they basically were both murdered too.
Yeah.
So murder started to make me very curious. You can't get too frightened in a small town like that. You have to start getting curious about what's happening here. And that's maybe why I ended up working for law enforcement.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
It kind of led you there.
Yeah.
You also talk about at an early age the dynamic that you had between you and your mother, or the first inklings you had that you had intuitive. Because there's a passage in the book, or a little paragraph in the book about there was some kind of interaction you had with your mother at the time. I can't remember the incident, but you said it stopped and made you think that you knew that it was going to help you get through certain situations with your mother by being intuitive.
Well, yes, I had to intuit how she was going to behave.
Yes.
She was irrational in some of her behavior, and she was also abusive. So I had to feel that frequency. You could feel a frequency that would come on. It was almost like a buzzing where something was going to happen. But you know what? It was actually acting that saved my life, because my mother was always interested in watching television. And I thought, well, if I can get into that television in the corner, then maybe she will
be interested in me.
Yes,
Yeah.
and love me and not hurt me. Yeah.
Wow, that's really good to have that. That was almost a protection mechanism that you have, but it was also your first insight into these powers, this wonderful intuition that you hold.
Well, that's not uncommon for children to grow up in a chaotic upbringing too. I know we're all born with a certain amount of psychic ability, but to have that ability to be acutely tuned in to, particularly an abusive parent, to just, it's a survival instinct.
It is. It's absolutely a survival instinct. And
as is disassociation too, which you did. So.
Yes, the disassociation was really interesting when I could actually feel myself, a part of my consciousness, leave my body when things were being done to it that shouldn't have been done. And I was trying to get into the houses of other people.
Wow.
And it became something that I didn't know at the time, of course, that was, of course, part of the psychic development, as well as sending my mind to other places to access information for that.
That's fascinating. I've had the floating on the ceiling looking down disassociation, but going to other people's houses, that's really advanced.
Well, I wanted to get in.
One way or another. That's really, it's
That's
just
funny.
so amazing to me. I had a similar contentious relationship with my mother, and I was thinking, if I, when I was reading the book, this would have helped me to disengage and disassociate.
But
a
you
little
did
bit.
do things that helped you. I mean, you became physical, and that's one of the key aspects here, because when you have contentious relationships, you're taking on that energy. You've got to do something with it. I would get on my bike and ride around the neighborhood. I mean, we were all very active in the neighborhood, so we did different things. And of course, I had the farm where I could, ride my horse. But the physical attributes of being able to move this energy. Also, the throat. You read that I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. It was
your beginnings.
Yes, it was always about the voice. So I learned to sing and the breath. And, I go down to the basement and I put on the top 40s. And back then it was, Carly Simon or somebody. And I would sing. And I also was in church and choir. So those vibrations helped me release a lot.
I bet.
And anybody that's having any kind of trauma, this is one of the things, Del, this is about trauma, helping people release that out of their body through the breath, through breathing, through singing, through moving. Yeah. And Jarvis just moved.
Some tension he needed to release.
Yeah, he wants to release that. Yeah, I got
Obviously.
It's so funny because I grew up in a very complicated environment. That's how I'll put it. But my coping mechanism was to hide and to draw and make clothes and just hide behind outfits. I mean, I would take on a role that way. I wouldn't sort of go out there and speak. It was dangerous to speak and be seen. So it was all about sort of cloaking and hiding. And
well, boy, do I have compassion for that. Yeah. Well, in the house, it was dangerous to speak. I used to hide in my sister's closet. And nobody could find me. There were a couple of shelves, and I would hang out in the back. It was really great. Yeah. But that ability to hide, and also, the nature of making clothes. My mother loved taking me shopping. So as long as I looked good, it's still one of my, bugaboos where I'm looking for that lipstick all the time. Yeah. Like thinking that that's going to make me really happy, or thinking that somebody's going to look at me and go, "Oh, you're so beautiful with that lipstick."
I know, but it was really seeking the approval of the parent, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
well, that's the codependent nature. Exactly. That's exactly what this is.
Narcissistic parenting and produces that. So, but what I found fascinating was, I think it was a bit later on when you were really heavily into your mediumship and your psychic abilities, that somebody said that actually a traumatic childhood really heightens those senses.
Yes. Well, first off, you have to understand there's a little bit of background here with I did not believe in talking to the dead.
Right. Yeah.
It was not in my wheelhouse. I wasn't interested in that. I wasn't even interested in UFOs. I mean, all of the stuff that I ended up living.
Getting right in the heart of. Jeez.
Yeah, but the dynamic. What did you just ask me? I just looked at Jarvis and he was so cute.
I know, he can be a distraction.
Don't look that way. We're going to put walls up around him. This happens.
It does happen. We've asked him to be on the show, and he claims he's too shy, but he is very, very cute. So. We're making him blush.
I have my book here. I'm going to use it as a fan. Okay. What did you just ask?
Did
me?
I ask you? Gosh, I know what it was.
yeah,
I
his-
said
a
I
child.
said that that there is a lot of people believe that our psychic abilities is
Yeah.
developed, particularly when you're in a traumatic childhood experience or have.
Well, there is something to that. One of the top remote viewers that I know, Joe McMonagle, he wrote a memoir and he basically talked about his dynamic with his mother. And there was also General Stubblebine, who was
Great
was
name.
one of the generals that were working with the remote viewers, the military psychic spies, that talked about people that had head injury and PTSD
that's right,
were some of
yes.
the greatest psychics that they were using. So I had that in my wheelhouse,
Yeah.
between the horse accident and my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah,
before
what
we
to-
move
oh,
to-
go
I
ahead.
just want to ask this question before we move on, because I know a lot of people, because you call yourself a medium slash psychic. What is the difference between medium and psychic?
Well,
before we go forward.
Well, let me use the terminology of psychic for a moment. Psychic has always gotten such a really bad rap, and until you really understand what it is, you're going to think it's just crystal balls or people that are walking around. They're telling you that you have a curse on you, and for $9,000 you can get it off. But the terminology psychic is the functioning of our brain and the ability for us to have any of the intuitive, anything precognitive, any of those dreams that give us more information. All of that is psychic functioning. So I really wanted to hit this on top of the head with the name of, using American Psychic, because that is what we all are capable of doing.
We are all capable of that.
Truly. We don't have to get a neon sign and call ourselves that, but the dynamic is this is part of our birthright. This is actually how I believe we access source, how we access God, this larger consciousness system. We all have this innate ability. So
Absolutely.
what the mediumship is, for me, I learned through at the feet of James von Prague, and he's a little short man, so I was really down there going, oh my God, what is this? But the mediumship is the ability to access information about deceased loved ones and make that communication. And the psychic part for me is accessing any information about any aspect of someone's life. When we were in the green room, I was just giving Debbie some information about something about that I saw with her that came to me, and of course we're open for this, so
Yes.
we decided, we talked a little bit about that. But psychic stuff for me is accessing any aspect of your life. And the other thing is it's not a dog and pony show, folks. This is not what I'm doing. This is not about trying to impress you. It's actually to help you. So my intention for you when I'm working with you is to access information for your highest good. That can mean any aspect about your life, your relationships, your home, your career, your pets, your health, all of it. And then, of course, there's the benevolent deceased loved ones, which is about connecting that love. It's still about connecting love. Why else do this work? I mean,
No,
there's no other
absolutely.
reason for it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And again, I encourage everybody to read the book, because there is so much of a journey that you go on through your childhood, through your, going to college, and then your singing and acting career, which, we could just cover about 10 hours just talking about that. But for today, I think we're just going to focus more on the work that you do today. But
Because
you
it's come
have-
up in every realm of your life. No matter
Yeah.
what you were doing with your life, you
Right.
had this had this psychic ability to feel something going on with somebody that you were interacting with, and
Like on stage
yeah,
even. You're just about to go on stage.
I love that story. There's a story of when you were doing a commercial, and the actor across from you's father
Yes.
was trying to tell his son something
Yes.
through you, and you struggled with. This was a turning point for you, wasn't
Yes, it really was. And I left acting probably 2 years after that. I was doing this work from the time I left, as an actress, from the time I left college. But I left the business in 2002. So that commercial, I was doing a Captain Crunch commercial, and the guy was sitting right there where Jarvis is. And all of a sudden we were talking, and instead of looking at him or the cameras or the lights, everything blurred, and I went straight in my mind's eye to a bedroom, to a blue bedroom with a crib. and I saw a baby, and I heard the way that I hear things, please tell him I'm so glad that he's reading the Blue Book. I watch him read the Blue Book every night to his son. And so when Mike, my pretend husband, touched me, I heard, I'm Fred, it's Fred, it's Fred. And that was his father's name. So that's how we spent the rest of the commercial, interacting with his father.
He validated the fact that his father's name was Fred, and that he had just had a baby, and
he read the same book.
Yeah, and it was like, wow,
Yeah.
to have that. I mean, you have to. You can't deny something like that when it's coming through you like that.
Well,
you couldn't walk away from it after all the years before that, too, of everything that you were intuitive to.
Well, but the whole thing about this is, Debbie, and Del, this is the expansion of how in the world did that happen? I mean, really, how did spirit, this larger consciousness system, set us up? Did I get the job just so I could work with Mike?
Yeah.
I mean, really.
It's
Because
amazing.
that's what life was becoming for me. It was as though I was literally put in situations like this in order to assist other people.
I know. I love the one. Tell the one about the mailbox with the woman going past with her little dog to the
Well,
vets.
I was in a really crappy mood. My divorce had hit, and I was going to the mailbox, and I was sitting there sorting the mail, and this girl comes in, and she was really like very LA with the glasses, and I saw her dog, and the dog said to me, "I'm really frightened about what she's going to do to me."
Oh, this is so funny. Yeah. Poor
And
thing.
I said, and I just was not in the mood for whatever reason. I said, "Do you know your dog's really worried about what you're going to do to him tomorrow?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm going to get his balls cut off." Jarvis, you want to read the book now, don't you?
The dog knew about it. The dog knew, and it's amazing. I want you to meet my
crazy.
dog.
Oh, let me tell you. I have to be very careful about this because don't call me about your dogs. I mean,
No. I know.
Much more important stuff
No,
to talk about.
I know. It's just just that you couldn't deny it. You couldn't help but to say something to her.
Well,
that she had attitude.
It's very
so.
interesting. These dogs, and I was hiking this morning, and there's one new dog on the trail, a young puppy. But puppy's getting about this big now. But I don't really talk to that dog because, as I've said to my friends, the dog doesn't know how to talk to me yet. Well, guess what happened today?
Oh, tell us.
That dog came up to me and she leaned against me, which is how they normally do if they want to communicate. And I saw that they had just put something, her parents had just put something on top of the dog food that made her love it. And I was so excited. I got it. So I communicated to the owner and she goes, "Yeah, we just put steak on top of that."
God.
And the dog's like jumping around. I don't know how the dog knows that I know how to talk to
Yeah.
her. But the dog got it. I got it. The dog was happy. And I'm like, "See you tomorrow."
Oh my God, that's too
That's
funny.
really fun.
So sweet.
Very sweet.
Well, those are the lighter aspects
Yeah.
of what you do. But I really want to, I mean, again, we're moving forward. And again, you went through so many adventures in your life. As I mentioned, I think in the promo, the pre-show promo, you had entanglements with the mob. Not that you were involved in the mob, but you worked in a restaurant where mob people would hang out.
Yes, when I left college, the first place I lived was owned, operated, and occupied by the Milwaukee mob. And
Downstairs, there was a restaurant, and
the whole
lived,
building.
The whole
Yeah,
building.
the whole building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
but
you lived in it in like
And
a
worked.
single, and worked in it.
Yes,
yeah.
I didn't actually live in the same room with them.
No. But you lived upstairs and with a
but
in
but
a
it was
studio.
It was an
Yeah.
incredible time. It was, and you can look these people up.
Yeah.
And they were actually great to me. So
Did you ever get a sense then that something wasn't right?
Well,
Yeah, like did you feel the criminal aspects of it? I mean, you kind of touch on it.
well,
in the
when I
book,
walked into
but-
the building, I was like, the Godfather movie had just come out a couple
Oh,
of years
so that
before,
was
and I'm
your-
looking around. There were no people kissing rings or anything like that, but there had this Mario Puzo kind of feel to the whole building.
Yeah.
But I did move a couple months later to another apartment up the street. But it was an incredible time working with them, and I was singing with an opera company at the time too.
Yeah, so you got to sing. You had a great career with your singing, like doing musical theater, doing opera, doing commercials, TV shows.
Oh my
Some of
God.
my
I mean, let's-
favorite TV shows
I was
you
just
were
going to
on.
say, let's
so-
mention some of them. I
Yeah.
mean, Married with Children, Murphy Brown, Steinfeld. I mean, there was tons of.
Everybody Loves
tons.
Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you had
So
some really good stints, should
Yeah.
we say?
Yeah, I
So
had a
what
great time
So what made you leave all that and just go
talking to the dead.
talking to
Yeah.
the dead?
That can-
Much more important.
It was.
Yeah.
But I did love it, and it was really incredible. And actually, Married with Children was shot on this lot.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, so back to the
Yeah.
familiar. Isn't it
Yeah.
neat to come back
It
to
is.
this? It feels like home. So also, you help solve some crimes too. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that started and
Well,
where
sure.
that came from?
I will. Well, this whole thing, this whole psychic thing, and then the mediumship thing started blowing out of my head in about 1995. I actually had a stalker.
Oh, that's
So
yeah, the guy.
I went public about a con artist, and then he started to stalk me. So I was
Yeah.
working with law enforcement, and actually I started working for law enforcement in kind. So there were a couple of instances about holding crime scene photos that actually facilitated. In one instance, there was one of the cases was reopened. It was a 30-year-old cold case. So I gave information to someone, and they reopened the case. And it was very interesting because this is, the show Sherlock.
Yeah,
Okay.
love. All that writing on the side, do you get that?
Well, actually, no, I don't get the writing, but you know how the camera just snaps
Yeah.
to another place? That's what was happening with my
Oh,
brain.
your head.
All
Yeah.
my traveling out of my body and trying to get to people's houses.
Yeah.
This is how it started to manifest.
Yeah, when you had the stalker, you saw the detective, I guess, that you had gone into initially to try to file something against or to try to talk to. He had some photos on his desk
Yes,
of a
he
crime
did.
scene, and all of a sudden something flashed in your head, and you started to tell him
Yeah, I
about
went,
what you
oh,
saw.
that's a homosexual rage murder. And he was like, what are you talking about? Put that down.
You're not supposed to touch it. You're not supposed to see
But
that.
what was interesting about that was this heightened fear, this is the gift of fear in some ways. That heightened sensibility that I was having with the stalking dynamic really made my antennas grow out. And it was the law enforcement officers who were very helpful to me, and it was the U.S. military psychic spies that helped me make sense out of all of this.
I know. This is what I find so fascinating is, so many people still sort of put it in the woo-woo category, but there's so much scientific evidence to back all of this up.
Yeah, there really is.
There really is. And I know of a few people that work with the police force, and they're not going to waste their time on anything that's, not substantial and provable.
Well, they will contact me when they're, out of luck. They basically are smart enough. And I have, I still keep relationships with these people across the country. And they will call me to ask me certain things. But it's really never about solving something. It's really about giving them information because I see in a different way than they can see. And I feel different things. Oftentimes when I go to a place where there's been a murder or something that's happened, it still lays in the layers of that information of that place. In a couple of my videos, there's one in particular where I literally am on, we're on set, we're doing something for Sci-Fi, and I walk to the place 30 years ago where the car was, where this woman was strangled and murdered. And I could feel that information from that perspective there.
Yeah.
So these are fascinating things that people don't like to think about because, or they like to make it about ghost stuff. It's
Yeah.
much more practical than that, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also what I found fascinating is, and quite scary to think of being, but you not only can sometimes sense and feel what the victim felt, but also what the perpetrator was thinking and feeling.
Yeah,
And that's really
From both
overwhelming.
ends.
that
Yeah.
was one of the,
Yeah.
well, that, I don't say a lot of things are crazy in this world because, the dynamic of these things are pretty interesting. But that was one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. And, for our listeners, for the viewers, this is like going into another dimension and being able to hear, see, and feel another person. And sometimes when I work, I will physically feel them. I walked into an evidence locker, which is, of course, the story is in the book, and I started to feel something different. I took my boots off. The boots that you're
Yeah.
wearing, Del?
Yeah.
I was wearing boots just like that, and I took them off. I wanted to be shorter. I was feeling more gruff. And this African-American detective that I was working with, he was standing over there, and he had been really skeptical of me, too. And I said, look, something's happening here. interrogate me like I'm the perpetrator,
Wow.
and let's get some information. And we did that, and I drew a map at the time, or I did working as the perpetrator, and basically that map was put on the map of Los Angeles, and the key areas were the places there were rapes that had not been, they didn't, solve.
unsolved, yeah.
So
Yeah.
this perpetrator was giving them a map.
How did that feel to have that his presence
Yeah, to have
so
an
close
evil
to you, or
some
even
kind
coming
of,
through you?
Well,
coming
you know
through
what?
you.
I'm glad you asked that. It didn't feel evil because I think
Felt
he wanted to
helpful.
help.
Helpful. Mhm.
I think he had regret, even though he was cocky and But he basically looked at the evidence that was on a tray, and he said, "You got my DNA in there."
Yeah.
And that was when the producers just like flipped, because I didn't know what was in some of those bags. And one of the guys, Sam Corcus, one of the producers of the show, came over to me and said, "That's a piece of the seat from the car where his semen was." And we were like, "What?"
Yeah.
I mean, that's really amazing stuff. So here's the thing. We have the capability of accessing information. And this might not sound really, very loving when we talk about going into the database, but we have abilities to access information, and all of us have this ability. It's just whether or not you're going to practice it.
No, exactly. And
Yeah.
develop it and fine tune it.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, many years ago, over 30 years ago now, maybe 35 years ago, Shar, who actually has a show here at UBN,
Sure, yes, of course.
did a reading for me.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, I was at a turning point at that point, whether or not I had been with my boyfriend for 7 years. Was I going to marry him? Should I move along? I wanted a family and kids. I knew what I wanted in my life. And not only did everything that she say to me hold true and have wisdom, but she did say to me, it was a 45-minute reading, and 2.5 hours later I left, and she said to me, "I would like to work with you. You have the ability, you don't know what you have to access." And I was so immersed as a producer that time and so into my career, it didn't even, I just liked what she told me, but she did say, "Do come back, let's work together." And I never did. I never, I didn't go down that. But she somehow knew that I should be getting in touch with that. And I never felt the things that, that you suddenly, felt that.
Well, you didn't need to. This is another thing. Those of us who are doing this in a public way, I guess it's the way that we're supposed to be doing it. When
exactly.
when we're accessing information like Shar and I both do, we see probability factors. They line up in various ways. I mean, I can describe how it shows up for me. Each psychic person, each medium, they can basically explain it to you. But this is a really good part to bring in. I've been working with a physicist for the last couple of years. His name is Tom Campbell. He's written a book called My Big Toe. But he has over 400 and some YouTube videos that you can go on and take a look at, and they're all free. But he's really explaining how this work does work. He helps me make the paranormal normal by describing this. He is one of the guys, along with another engineer by the name of Dennis Metternich, who went with Bob Monroe from the Monroe Institute.
I want to get there.
They developed the HemiSync application, which is binaural beats. They developed that whole thing. And Tom has, I've been working with Tom for the last couple of years and traveling around and being on panels like this to discuss this. This really is important for people to understand. In the scientific realm, this is physical matter reality.
It's
This
form.
Yes, this is form, exactly.
Form and formless.
Energy.
And form and formless, or this is non-physical matter reality, that we are accessing non-physical matter reality and making it here, bridging it. I'm bridging that for people so that they understand that the information, which is non-physical matter reality, that the soul that departs, or the consciousness that departs the body, is still accessible.
Absolutely. Totally.
So amazing.
So I want to talk about your time, in the Monroe Institute, because that to me was just, the latter part of the book is fascinating. and then I want to get to the level 27, and the work that you do there, because
Yeah.
that again to me was just mind blowing, quite honestly.
Right.
So
Well, some of this for the audience is Bob Monroe developed these aspects, these levels of consciousness by going out and having his own experiences and being given downloads to develop everything from level 21 to 27, etc. And the Monroe Institute is the largest educational center for expanded states of awareness without the use of drugs. Because, you know, people are going out there and having trips with various things, whether it's DMT or ayahuasca. And that's fine for 1 or 2 times, but your brain can get really fried by all of it.
It's dangerous.
And it can be dangerous. I know that people have been able to access, even with LSD, some different form of their brain, which has changed them. And I do believe that that's very important. So I'm not necessarily making a judgment around it. I'm just saying you have to be incredibly careful with this.
Yeah.
And what Monroe offers you is this brain entrainment that keeps you in a safe environment with people who are working with you, and you're doing this work every day, and you're having experiences, and you're able to download them and talk about them.
Yeah, and what I found so fascinating in the book is that this group that we were working with, you both sort of accessed the same realm, and separately you came back and discussed, you know, who you met, what was said, and there were so many
Coincidences.
well, not coincidences, but validation
Yeah.
that this really is
Yeah.
factual.
Well, that's the group consciousness,
Yeah.
and that's one of the other great things about going to this institute, because you are with about 20 other people, and you are going in and you're having experiences. There's one of the top levels of classes. You have to go through a few to learn what each level of consciousness that Bob teaches is. It happens to be star lines, and that's going out. You know, it's just here's the thing, with one thought, you can be in a different consciousness.
Absolutely,
you're-
one thought away.
Yes, exactly. And so that's the remote viewing capabilities here, but it's a pretty remarkable place to go.
Yeah.
You
can
met
access
a
that. Amazing.
Yeah, the one that touched my heart so much was that you said that there were some children that had actually passed away or passed
Yes.
on, and that they didn't realize they were dead.
Well, you know, this is another one of those things where belief systems gets really challenged, because I do know from doing this work and talking to so many people who have passed on that even in the worst situation, whether it's a murder or a car accident, people have been ripped out. That the Holy Spirit, so to speak, can remove your consciousness from that experience.
Wow.
So that you're actually seeing these things happen to you. You know, it's very tricky, of course, when we are sick and we're going through that terrible, you know, dynamic of
Long process.
the
Yeah.
process of our bodies. But the release out of getting out of that diseased body is really kind of important. So I've been able to access and talk to people on these realms. But one of the first things that happened, this is going into, it was a Lifeline program, and it was my first what we called a retrieval, or going into a situation where there were going to be people that I needed to help. I didn't know what to do. I ended up in this hospital. It was actually Eben Alexander who showed up in my consciousness. He was at the Monroe Institute at that time teaching, and I didn't know that until the evening before. But we were in this. He was in this experience with me, and he opened the door, and I walked in, and there were these children, and they said, "Are you my mommy? Are you an angel?" So this reflection was that these children were waiting to be met by loved ones. And of course, we didn't know how that happened. A few of the children were bald, so maybe it was cancer or something. But there was something that I was learning, that consciousness can help other people in another realm. So I was giving them grace and being comfortable with them, and they were feeling better about what was happening. And then I moved on because it was an experience. So we don't necessarily know. I mean, everybody thinks that, you know, they go into the God's arms. Well, I'm sure that happens at some point, but there very well may be angels or something that happens to help them in this process.
Fascinating.
There was that
Just-
story of that young man that had killed somebody, and was feeling very, very guilty.
Yes, a young
Yeah,
man,
tell
a
that story.
basketball player, I guess, and he was in those long shorts and the great shoes, and I was in an interrogation room, like where we are when we go to a police station, and I was observing. This is like my second one, and this boy was so remorseful, and he was like, "I know I did this," and blah blah blah. He didn't know he was dead, and part of my job was basically to say, "Hey, listen, your regret is one of the ways that will help you move through this. I could feel this emotion coming through me, but you too perished in this situation. It wasn't that you just shot someone shot you." And he was like, "Oh my God, what about my family?" So actually some of his deceased relatives came at that point and moved on. Amazing stuff.
Yeah,
now
incredible.
whether this is like a joke or something, or our brains, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. It
I don't
sounds
either.
too potent
Yeah.
and too.
Yeah.
There's too much at stake for it to just
Yeah.
And
not have.
too much validation
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, exactly.
right, exactly.
And that was the other one, just because I know that I just want to be really cognizant of time here. If you can, because it does relate to the beginning of the book, which is your relationship with your mother,
Yeah.
and how once your mother had passed away, you were able
Yeah.
to meet her on that level through Mina. So could you want to
Yes,
share
yes.
that with us?
Well, that's the last part of the book. So part of the dynamic of that is, well, she's a thread throughout the entire book. So when she actually passed, it was the first time that I could actually help her. I wanted to make sure that she had the right jewelry and the right blouse.
Those things were important to her.
Yes,
Yeah.
the things that I knew that she would really appreciate. And by the time I accessed her on the other side, which was a number of years after she had been deceased, she came to understand things in a different way. And it was the most incredible opportunity of love and forgiveness for both of us.
I was going to say for both of you.
yeah.
Really wonderful, because not everybody can do that,
Yeah.
Well,
and
I honestly, Debbie, I think that that's the reason that I do what I do, because I'm a testament to that on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Because when loved ones have made mistakes, they often utilize me to make a communication.
to
Yep.
make it,
Wow.
to
And
resolve, to make
yes.
it right, to resolve within them, to make peace.
Yes, and that gives them the
amazing.
opportunity to move on, not just us.
No, right.
So
with
we're
them.
doing dual work here.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. It all
yeah. makes
makes sense.
And, I'm just curious, and off the book it could be in the book, but oh my God, I just lost my train of thought. See, it's Jarvis again. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It wasn't. I'm just going to blame you for everything right now.
The Jarvis effect.
Yes.
But
I love it.
but for someone who has the abilities that you have, how I'm just trying to figure out how it delineates, how, for one it can work for this but not for the other, or how you talk to people, you see things before they happen, and you're able to access people that have passed, but how does it delineate? Because there's a lot going on around you all the time. I'm wondering how that works within your...
Okay, it's called boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody that has had any kind of trauma, they're probably empathic. And you can't walk around just being empathic. You've got to do the work. You've got to help heal the trauma. We're working with trauma doctors. I haven't done this yet, but I hope to have a list of resources on the website to give people more access, because there's Dr. Peter Levine, who basically has been helping people with trauma for years, the somatic experiencing therapist that I've been working with. These things live inside of our bodies, and we have to find ways to heal them, because as soon as you start healing them, that moves away, and then more insight starts.
Sure.
The first part of the book is called blind sight, which is a medical term that means a blind person who has the ability to perceive a light source. And when we're in trouble, we're all just in the dark trying to find our way out, right? And we're praying, and we're asking for help, and really our prayers are being answered not the way we want, but what's best for us.
Yes.
Right.
And then
always.
the second half of the book, it's called insight. The top of the second half of the book is when I have my first it's one of the first Me Too experiences
Yes.
that we can go back to from the 90s when, we were all growing up in the business here.
That's right.
And we were attractive, hot, morsels that were navigating narcissism.
Absolutely.
And there wasn't
And-
this
and-
collective movement to help us
Yeah.
out of it. We
Right.
just knew
We didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
and
horrible.
and a lot of us that grew up in a narcissistic environment, I mean, we're attracted to that still.
Yeah.
We haven't figured it out. It's still like I can have it end differently this time. So we
Familiar.
actually
Yes.
moths to the flame of a lot of narcissists, and it's pretty amazing what's happening right now.
Well, and we have access. I mean, we have access to this information, but we also have our history to go, what didn't we do? And we can talk about that and help young girls make sure that they are frosty or stay aware to this
Right,
stuff.
so
you
that
know?
doesn't-
and understand their own dynamics. I mean, codependency. I mean, it's the perfect match, and
It
we
is.
get seduced into that sort of charm, and often if we have low self-esteem, if we've been as a child in that environment. When somebody compliments us and seduces us, we're just so vulnerable to it.
Well,
That's
we're
right.
looking for daddies.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Our daddies were not available. This is another part of the American
Totally
part
can
of,
relate.
or even from you being in England. This is war dynamic. This is the codependent pattern that happens because of war. People are traumatized. They start medicating. The children are looking for help. They're looking for saviors. They're looking for daddies. They're looking for people who are acting confident and saying, "I can help you. I can do this. Watch
makes
me.
them
Watch
so
me.
vulnerable.
Watch me." It's just another one of the narcissistic disturbances. So
Yeah.
we've got to get really clear, and that lies are lies.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
have to listen to our own intuition to help us understand we got a problem here.
And until we heal ourselves, we're just going to keep attracting that situation. We can sort of get out of one situation, but
That's
we're going
right.
to reenact it if we don't go inside and figure out what it is that we're doing to keep attracting
Right.
that in.
It's
So-
about personal responsibility. Everybody has to take responsibility for what they're doing.
So we, believe it or not, we only have that 5 minutes left. So I really want you to talk
That went
about,
fast.
you've got some up and coming events, and
Yes.
if you can share how people can contact you and work with you and
Sure, I'm
all
really,
of that.
Well,
Yes.
thank you, and I'm very excited. I'm going back to Chicago, which were part of my stomping grounds.
Yes, they were a
and
big part.
Literally on a
Yes.
stage.
Yeah.
I'm doing an event with Jen Weigel, Conversations with Weigel, on July 12th at the Wilmette Theater. And Jen is fabulous. She's written her own books, but she has this amazing podcast called I'm Spiritual, Damn It. So she gets all of us who are in this field doing something about this. And I'm going to be on stage with her and reading the audience. And I'm doing an event at the Paramount Theater on the 14th of July in Chicago, where Jim Cordy, who basically is in the book, the man that put me on stage in my first equity show, he is the artistic director of the Paramount Theater.
Oh my gosh,
So we're
full
gonna have
circle.
we're gonna have a great conversation. I'll be reading the audience, so I can't wait to do those.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything happening in LA? Because I know that you
Yeah.
are an LA
Well,
local.
I just did something at Vitello's. I did a book launch, and it was really great. I got to acknowledge everybody and read the room. So I intend to do that again.
Yeah.
Perhaps
and
at
I think-
Do you
Vitello's.
enjoy doing that, reading the room?
Well, you know what? We have to set it up with the understanding that I'm basically accessing information for your highest good.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're doing it as an example, but it's also an opportunity for you to start tapping into your own intuition. That's one
Right.
of the reasons I do it. And I like doing small groups and medium groups. And I don't like to do over like 100 right now, because I need to be able to work with a number of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you ever
that's what I
get
was wondering.
resistance? I mean,
Yes.
do you ask
Yes.
permission before you share something?
Well, here's what happens. If you're coming to see me, you're already asking for permission.
Yeah,
all
you-
right.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
No.
And if you come to an event, you are basically asking for permission too. But, I do get resistance. And oftentimes, if that happens either on the phone, because I work a lot on the phone, and sometimes in person, but with this book, coming out, I'm really doing a lot more phone work because I'm traveling. But the dynamic is, I'm not here to, be a dog and pony show.
No,
I'm here to
exactly.
help you.
Right.
So I'm seeing things, but if
open.
you don't want to talk to, Uncle Tom or Aunt Sarah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but this is what's showing up for you. And within the first 15 minutes, I'll send you home and I'll give you your money back.
Well, I'm remembering something in the book where you told somebody that their partner was having an affair. So I'm just wondering in that situation.
Okay,
I mean,
well, that was when, this is one of the first things that happened, and I talk
Yeah.
about it in the book, and I was like 8 years old. And I was across the street with the woman who lived across the street. And
Right.
I was breaking up bread for Thanksgiving stuffing or something, and I was looking in the bread, and I went, oh my goodness, I see your boyfriend with a girl from the hospital. I think it's a nurse, and we're there in the parking lot, and he's telling her he doesn't want to be with you, and he doesn't want to buy you a Christmas present, and he wants to be with her. She came right over, stood in front of me, like, how do you know that? And they did break up, but she did marry him.
In the
So
end.
Yeah, they broke up and then they got back
Back
together.
together.
again.
She married
yeah,
him. Yeah.
yeah. And we didn't even touch on the whole adventure you had when you went to Cuba and all of that. We didn't even.
Well, you have
touch
to
on that.
invite me back.
We
And
are,
we're just going to encourage people to pick this book up
Yeah.
because it's available to you right now. Now, how can they access the book? Your
there's the
website,
book.
Amazon. I know it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble and Simon & Schuster. And
Okay.
right now, through June, if you buy it on Amazon, you can get a free gift. Now, do you guys know Gaia TV?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
I
of
love
course.
Gaia.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Well, they partnered with me for the launch of this book.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you go to Amazon and buy the book now, you can go to this website, American-Psychic.com, and Jarvis will type that out, American-Psychic.com, and redeem your free gift of 2 weeks of free Gaia.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
that's
great.
really
Isn't that
good. Yeah,
great?
Guy's
They have-
great.
So
I
get
know,
it on
I love it.
Amazon.
Make all the-
Amazon, yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And is it on Audible by chance?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not
okay.
yet.
Will you narrate it?
Of course I will.
Oh, that would be
Beautiful
great
voice.
to hear your voice.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Definitely.
Will be
Well,
my
it's-
book club book.
it's
I
worth-
recommend it.
And it's
Exactly.
And then
number-
you can come speak at my book club.
Okay, I'd love that. And it's
Okay.
it's number one as a new release on Kindle.
Oh my-
Last week it went to number
Whoa,
one.
Good for you. Congrats. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Wow. We
wonderful.
cannot say enough about getting in touch with and finding
Yes.
more about Marla's work and her
and your
book
website. Give your website
Yes.
too.
It's
Because
It's marlafreeze.com, and of course the book website, which is connected to marlafreeze.com, is americanpsychicbook.com.
great, wonderful.
Amazing.
Well, I know we're going to have you
Yeah,
back.
just went way
'cause
too fast.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about doing something outside of the studio with the two of us, and then having Marla come back on and share what she saw.
I missed that talk. Okay, I'm on board. Yes, I'm here
Maybe
for that.
Jarvis could come too.
Yeah.
Well, he'll be part of the after for sure.
Hey
We're
guys,
gonna
thank
just
you
put the
so
blog
much.
up.
I'm so grateful to
And
be here.
thank you
Yeah,
so
it's
much.
really wonderful.
We thank you for joining us today. We're right back here next week. We're doing
Yeah.
a show on relationships next week. I think you're
Yeah.
gonna really enjoy that as well. So join us 1 p.m. here at UBN, Del and Debbie, Mind, Body, Soul. Thank you guys. Thanks
Yes,
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you next
Thank
week.
you, Marla.
Thank you, Marla.